on NewsX in association with the Business World. And we've been doing this series for a very long time. A lot of learnings and a lot of unlearnings also have been a part of this exercise. A lot of good ideas have come up, and a lot of bad ideas have been dismissed also. And without wasting any more time, let me introduce our panelists for today. Mr. Nish Bhatt, founder and CEO of Millwood Kane International, joins us on the program. Ms. Jaya Vaidyanathan, CEO of BCT Digital, is also here with us. Mr. Anthony Alex, CEO of Rainmaker, also joins us. Welcome. Mr. Dhaval Doshi, Director of Smart Home NX, is also a part of our debate today. Ms. Amrit Ahuja, independent brand consultant, ex-Facebook Communications Director, India. Mr. Vatsal Gaur, private equity and venture capital lawyer, also part of this debate and this program. And last but not the least, my partner in crime, Dr. Anurag Batra, chairman and editor-in-chief of the Business World and Exchange for Media Group, also joins us. Well, Anurag, we've been doing this for quite some time, and I guess you would concur that there have been a lot of learnings, a lot of new ideas have come up. But Mr. Nish Bhatt, let me start by asking you, from the conversation that I heard right before we started, this debate, is that you're based out of Cyprus, and
that's correct.
How do you perceive is going on in India? Well, you obviously can tell very easily what the COVID numbers are, what the recovery rate is, how many people have died, and where we are in that curve. But when you look at the Indian economy, where do you think India is today?
To be honest with you, I don't think that you can look at India in isolation. I think this is a pandemic, and we need to look at the issue of COVID as a global problem, requiring a bit more of a global response. However, the numbers are high in India. 1.5 million have contracted it, and the numbers keep going up. So there's no escaping the fact that we do have some issues structurally. I think the hospitals, the facilities that are available are being strained and will continue to be strained. So I think the story of COVID, I think, is something that needs to be looked at as part of a uniform sort of effort with the World Health Organization, and of course what's happening locally within India and how India is tackling it. Now, clearly, having put equivalent to 10% of 266 billion, 10% of India's GDP into liquidity is a massive initiative. It's a great stimulus. So there are a lot of things that are being done, by the Indian government. But I think the challenge right now is, how do you deploy this in an effective way? How do you get those funds, downstream into the guy who's got the tea shop or whatever have you? How does that penetrate, and how does that impact people's lives? Now, clearly, having the stimulus in place is one thing, but simultaneously, when you've got a state of virtual lockdown, and people are obviously going to be very nervous because of the numbers that are there, I think that money and that stimulus may well take quite some considerable time before it has confidence, on the streets.
And Nish, I was talking to a very senior legal brain just before this, and he believed that 2021 will see FDI inflows in India that India has never seen, and it will make up for 2020. Where you're based in Cyprus, how do you see the investments into India? I know your firm tries to get investments out of India into Cyprus, but how's the world looking at India? When you talk to global investors, when you talk to entrepreneurs, how are they looking at India?
Well, the thing is, money doesn't discriminate in one way or the other. Money goes where it's going to make more money, and I think you've got to take into consideration that India is by far going to be the biggest growth story, over the next decade. Whether it looks like it or not today, that is the case. If you just look at the geo tie-up with the Facebooks and Google, whatever have you, these are obviously, very, they're in the limelight. These transactions with, in the value of tens of billions, they are just the beginning, in my opinion. So Indian economy is being looked upon very favorably by foreign entities. The fact that Chinese manufacturing is falling a little bit out of favor I think that's an opportunity also, and people are looking at India as a result of that. And I think the future is bright for India. I just think we need to just get on the other side of COVID.
Okay, Anthony, how do you see the economic environment, and what do you think this economic stimulus means to entrepreneurs?
So I think the economic stimulus is a great start for entrepreneurs. The government is particularly for MSMEs. So a lot of us who fall in the MSME bracket, we are definitely seeing benefits coming out of the government's stimulus package. Looking at the economy from a larger
tell us what are these benefits that are coming out and that are accrued, because sometimes there has been a skepticism of the policy. So kind of give us granularity on this.
Yeah. So basically what the government has done is, they had an MSME act in place even before the pandemic hit. But post the pandemic, what the government has done is it has made it easier for MSMEs to do business. There are more relaxations, more benefits for MSMEs, those who are registered as an MSME with the government. So that's for the medium and small scale enterprises. That's the opportunity, right? So you can sort of register yourself as an MSME with the government and sort of avail of the benefits that the government has been pushing out. But from a larger macro perspective, I think the government probably needs to do a little bit more in terms of maybe upping the spending a little bit, maybe putting in a little more money. Infrastructure. I mean, it's an area where our country needs is sorely lacking, right? So if you're talking about 2021 and 22 being great growth years for India, I think we'll have to really significantly spend on infrastructure, right? I mean, investments.
I totally concur with you. I've been saying that's the only way to get demand back. So I totally concur with you.
Right. Let's also get a reaction from Jaya Vaidyanathan on the same. Jaya. Do you think that the stimulus package, which was announced by the government, has done the trick? Because let's not make comparisons what the Western world has done. Right. This government doesn't believe in direct benefits. And, naturally so. We are not at that level. Our aim was to get to 5 trillion perhaps by 24, 25. And that has also been met with an impediment called COVID-19.
I look at the stimulus package with cautious optimism. In the sense that, the stimulus is in place. There is enough liquidity in the system. So there are the right building blocks in place. It's more about the nth mile of does it reach the right people at the right time, which is going to be the determining factor on, whether we recover faster or we recover at a normal pace. You did ask certain things. I mean, when you look at, India is the third in terms of the overall COVID impact. But in terms of the relative numbers of population, it is not too bad. And in terms of the number of deaths, it's still not too bad. I think overall, when you look at it in terms of how has that impacted the economy, I think you're going to see certain sectors with the V-shaped recovery pattern. You're going to see some with the J-shaped recovery pattern. So I think there is no, when you look at the stimulus package as a whole, it's not a lot of direct stimulus, which we didn't expect from the government anyways. It was more about indirect stimulus and how long does it take to come back and reflect in terms of absolute numbers in terms of economic recovery. I think that is something that's going to be more of watch and wait. What we would love to see is like, a couple of people mentioned, is large governmental spending on infrastructure and removal of all the bottlenecks in the process. A lot of the infrastructure, the regulatory needs, all of that has to be really done away with for us to make a significant dent and try to do more of a V-based recovery than a J-based recovery. We have seen witness to that in terms of the agri-sector. With the monsoons, there's been a right away, there's been a bounce back. And certain other economies where you don't get that 9th mile connectivity, that's going to be a problem. Example is, I know we spoke about the MSME sector, for instance. People are really scared of lending to the MSME sector despite all the stimulus that's going on, simply because that's the one with the most NPAs. And if you kind of add more stress to the banking system that's already overloaded with an NPA, then you're going to have this vicious cycle going on and on. So you need to break that vicious cycle to make a dent and take a moment going forward.
Okay, Dhawal, you have a smart homes enterprise. It's about buying expensive digital gadgets and building a smart home, which is technology. So people are spending more and more times in their homes. But are they spending on making their homes smart homes? Or right now they're only focusing on sustenance?
So, I think there are two areas of the work that we do, right? One is where we are completely dependent on the residential housing market. So you talk about guys who are buying a home and they're doing that discretionary spending purely to show that they have a cool home, right? And then you have that spending which is more utility driven, which is about saying, hey, I have a maid that used to come in, and during the lockdown, we saw this sudden upsurge for people wanting to buy our robotic vacuum cleaners, right? Because we don't want to do that. We have to sit with our kids to do online classes, and we have so many other things to do at home. We are working from home, so we need these robotic vacuum cleaners to come in and clean things, right? Having said that, COVID-19 and keeping the conversation in context to the economy, I would say there is people are very cautious. I mean, I've had conversations with people in my own family and friends who called me and said, hey, you know what, Dhaval, I just got reminded you deal in these robots. Do you have them? And I said, I have them, but you got to buy them now because they're going to run out of stock very soon. They didn't make the purchase, and their maids are back, and they have their sanitizers at home and their gloves at home. They don't mind going back to that, because here's the killer, right? A robot is going to cost you, a good robot is going to cost you 50,000 onwards, right? And that's a big investment. When we are talking about COVID-19, when we are talking about people not willing to loosen their purse strings, it's something that they are very, very cautious of. Despite the fact that they have to get down, take that jhadu and go on the floor, they don't mind doing that if they're going to save some money right now. So I think it's a very interesting situation.
And Dhawal, looking so
what we
honest.
are doing.
Mhm. And Dhawal, how do you see as an entrepreneur, revenues of a lot of startups have been impacted.
Yes.
Funding has been halted in the middle. So how do you see things as an entrepreneur? How do you see your fellow entrepreneur friends dealing with it?
So let me speak about myself and about my friends, right? So we have been obviously had a huge exposure to the residential market. We used to do a lot of stuff for homes. That conversation has completely stopped. I don't know what other real estate players would like to say or what reports JLL brings to the table or publishes online. I can see that it's not happening, right?
But when I talk to, let's say, a no broker, or I talk to other online players, they've said to me that they've sold 5,000 homes in the last 4 months at the entry level. At the entry level, I want to qualify that.
So the guy, so here's the thing. I want to see how sustained that is, right? I'm not doubting that growth story. I'm not doubting the numbers that a lot of guys, even Square Feet Retail, a lot of these guys have put out. What I'm doubting is the sustainability of that, right? Because when you look at residential purchases or home purchases, you're talking about guys who have saved that money over a period of time and now they're making an investment. We're not talking about the guys who are right now going to go there to the bank and get a loan, because let's be real, banks are now again re-looking at loans that have been sanctioned. So I think to say that, hey, you know what, lockdown, we did a lot of sales despite the lockdown, I think that would have been the story even, despite lockdown, despite COVID-19. It's not a phenomenon that you can attribute to the macroeconomic situation, if you know what I'm saying, right? And I think for us to say that, okay, you know what, people are going to spend, no, I mean, people are very, very cautious. And I think when we are talking about economic stimulus, we are talking about the government, we are talking about startups and entrepreneurs, Capex conversations are around digital. They're not about non-digital, right? So if you're going to talk about me as an entrepreneur looking at building the next big smart home aggregator platform, I'm not going to be spending on things that are not going to give me profitability and not going to give me bottom line. Right? I'm not
going to performance and direct revenue impact.
Yes, I'm not going to do top line sales. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on my profit.
I think that's the sentiment that most entrepreneurs have echoed on the show. Amrit, you're an advisor to businesses, brands. what are the business owners and brands saying to you? Are they still on a pause? Do they see the next 3 months as demand picking up? Tell us, what is the sentiment there?
So I think the sentiment is cautious. But if I just look at an overall brand India, I don't think brand India has ever been more stronger. It's very strong. And the testimony is that you've got all the FANG companies, which is Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix in India, and most have invested in Reliance, an Indian company. So that's a big, big endorsement about the growth that's expected from India. And all the brands that I'm talking to, I think they're really outlining three things, saying that for the economy to pick up, the government probably needs to look at policy changes, which brings about large employment. So focusing on manufacturing, infrastructure, we're in a position to grab manufacturing from China. And if we just play it right, we will create a lot of jobs. Second thing, there are about 65 million MSMEs in India, and they contribute to over 25% of the GDP. And some of the stimulus packages that have been made are wonderful to get that money in the hand of the MSMEs. I think a little push on helping the MSMEs go digital and having a digital footprint so that there's transparency, there is an ease of brand building for them, will really, really add a lot of stimulus to the economy. And not only will we see a we growth, but I'm sure what will follow the we growth is going to be a hockey stick growth. And that's the sentiment that most of the brands that I work with are talking about. And also there's a very interesting shift that's happening. We all lived in a very capitalist world. But I think what the pandemic has done is that there is a lot of talk about a shift between the capitalist and the socialist world. And there are a lot of policy changes that are being done, to be more socialist and have that lens also. So I don't think that we are wasting this crisis that India is going through. Probably India is one of the countries which is moving very fast on making some of the changes. And I feel very hopeful and very, very positive about the future.
Okay, let's get a quick reaction from our opening monologue from Vatsal as well, and then we'll dip into a short break. Vatsal?
So, quickly, I also want to ask you, do you think commercial litigation will rise? And while there is a very set interpretation and definition of force majeure, do you think that may still give rise to disputes?
Well, I think, broadly, this whole force majeure reflection is now, people are wiser in hindsight. I think when initially contracts were coming into question, a lot of lawyers and businesses were struggling because their contracts didn't envisage a situation like this. Having said that, just to add to what Amrit was saying, I have a slightly different take on this. From a purely startup perspective, there were a lot of requests that were made for fast-tracking GST refunds. Didn't happen. We thought about loans being given against GST, which are refunds which are pending, didn't happen. There was a SIDBI fund of funds created.
Vatsal, you cannot make a broad, I am the recipient of a refund, okay? So I will say it firsthand that your statement may be partly true, it may not be fully true. So
I'm glad, but I'm just coming from.
There have been people on the show who got it. So yes, it may not have happened for some people, which is also reality. Yes. Nobody is doubting that. But there are people who receive that.
Absolutely. And I think from a startup's perspective, because those are the companies I tend to reflect and represent, some of their concerns are around fundraising drying up. A lot of it is because unless you're a D2C business or a gaming business or an entertainment business or an edtech business, you'll notice that the newspapers or the media aren't carrying much fundraising news. And the reason for that is very clear, that the economy currently is driving purely on digital, like Dhaval said. To add to that, and the reason why manufacturing becomes much more important is because we're in a uniquely poised country with about 55% of our revenues coming from services sector. But the services sector cannot employ more people in the formal economy. So the only way for the formal economy to grow is actually for tier 2, tier 3 cities to go more and more digital. And the focus being towards those. And I think any policy intervention which creates more employment at a tier 2, tier 3 level is what can really grow India forward.
Even the stimulus package was extremely heavy and, specifically catering towards the MSME segment. And why wouldn't it be? 12 crore of our population, in fact, is represented and is employing Indians in that particular sector. But do you think that the chances of them coming out of this pandemic on a brighter note are diminishing as the news and as the spread of the vaccine is also delayed? There were earlier notions that it's going to come back in September. Now it's December. Now there are also speculations it might not come to India by next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to come back to where we left last before the break, all I was meaning to say was that the amount of liquidity that we've caused and created is all lending based, and it's still double-digit interest rates. From a startup's point of view, it's two ways to look at it, right? Is it really a liquidity helpline, or is it further debt? And in an MSME segment where you're already either debt laden if you're a brick and mortar business, and if you're not, you're actually short of equity at all times. It's been a great measure, and I know that from where it started at a sub 1%, it's now reflecting 10% of GDP, as Nish mentioned. Having said that, the real reform lies in being able to augment on the existing domestic consumption market. And companies that have been able to pivot during this time to cater to the existing domestic consumption market are the ones that are really growing right now. So I think a lot of companies have had to also re-strategize to be able to make sure that the market opportunity is still available with them. But from a purely government interface, I still feel that while Anurag, it's great that some companies are getting the GST refunds, but there could be
also
more
tax refunds.
Yes,
just GST, the income tax refunds.
Yes, I agree. There have been cases where people have reflected on that, but there are cases where they're still pending. And I feel if lending can happen fast-tracked, and there was talking about the SIDBI fund, and there was a lot of positive energy around the SIDBI fund for companies. But if you see the corpus, the dry powder in that SIDBI, the SIDBI fund, it's still really high. It's not all been deployed. So what is it that the private sector could do to really tap into that fund that is available? And I think these are some questions I would love for the other members.
Yeah, I want to ask you, everyone is talking of the GDP benefiting in the future from digital transformation, from companies becoming competitive because the digital transformation has been accelerated by COVID. Give us your inputs on that.
Let me probably explain that with an example, right? To bring home the point. You know that the world is increasingly digital. So the traditional decisions that you made, let's pick an example from earlier panelists on credit decisioning. So the credit decisioning was based on fixed data points as to, have they bounced a check? Has there been bad decisioning? Or how do you classify that into an NPA? Whereas now you're looking at a data which is not largely, those types of data are available for corporates. Those types of data are not available for retail and MSME, for instance. So how does a bank actually lend to these people? It's a real challenge. So that comes from a lot of fluid data points, like for instance, big data points. Is the SME led by a person that's been in the news for the wrong reasons? Or have they been frequently subjected to management audits? Are they in a different type of situation that needs drawing attention to? So those are things that needs to be watched, and that cannot happen just by what you call as, I am an intelligent person that can make an intelligent decision. That needs to be transformed into a science. That's where you have digital transformation. And what you do to leverage that is use the power of, let's say, AI and ML. So you do patterns. In the past, when data has to be lent in this particular fashion, you would see that, look at new sources of data, look at new ways and intelligent ways of making that credit decisioning. Only then it can reach them faster. I'm piggybacking on some of the points that Vatsal mentioned, which was on, can it come to me faster? Can it come to me in a more transparent fashion? Where is the money? It was just a classic Jerry Maguire, show me the money, right? And it cannot happen until you have a lot of the systems in the backbone supporting it in making those intelligent decisions in a split second. It should not take time between branches and between party to make that decision, in which case it's going to be much more harder. And there are new normal also has new ways of making that decision as well. Let's say that you score 40 on 100, and that's a pass percentage to make a credit decision. So when it's a 40, what do? Do you lend or don't do? And then you use a lot of these softer data points to make that intelligent decision. So that's where you see the power of digital. So a lot of new ways of looking at risk assessment. That all comes
Sure.
from the power of digital transformation.
Good example. Mr. Alex Anthony, coming to you, tell us, where do you see the economy headed? And do you see SMEs that we make them out to be very big part of the economy? How will they recover from this setback?
So let me answer the first question first. I think a big part of where we see the economy headed in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months really is, I think in many ways we've been handed a gift by the Chinese, in the sense that there's suddenly a greater sense of let's invest in India. It's a democratic country. It's got the right values. Right thinking nations across the world should be thinking about investing in India, and so on and so forth. So this is the moment that we have to seize, right? We have to seize, and we have to seize. There are two, in my view, there have always been two major factors that India has lagged behind in terms of attracting foreign investment. And we have to address both of those very quickly because they're critical. Land and labor, good old fashioned land and labor, right? From time immemorial.
What about the cost of capital?
Sorry?
What about the cost of capital?
Yes. So, look, if you deregulate, if you remove some of the restrictions around land and labor, which have traditionally existed, which still exist in terms of labor law reforms, land reforms, etc., you're going to find a lot of capital flowing into the country. That's really the one area where you're going to find that job creation is going to happen. The government can't sort of carry the entire burden on its shoulders. It's got to really make it much easier for a sort of foreign capital to flow in, create jobs, and that's the capital that we want, right? So, though, in my view, that's critical for us. Large or small or medium enterprises, we will need a heavy dose of investment, foreign capital flowing into the country if we really want to seize the moment seize the opportunity that we have on our plates at this point of time. And that's, if all of this works out, I can say that we'd be very, very well positioned in the next, say, 12 to 18 months to sort of significantly grow and create job and employment opportunities for our people.
Dhaval, demand is the issue that everyone is grappling with. When do you see the demand coming back in more product and service categories? Do you see temporarily coming back during Diwali? Or do you see that will be the start of demand picking up steadily and going back to old levels?
I think it's going to be pretty dynamic. I don't think people are suddenly going to be going out and buying stuff and getting their homes smartened up.
No revenge commerce, so to say. Revenge shopping.
No, not really. Yeah, I think the whole conversation about saying that, hey, you know what, there's going to be this sudden upsurge in demand, I think that's not very realistic on both the sides, right? There are severe challenges on the supply side of certain services, many, I would say, in terms of labor, in terms of provisioning the right service, in terms of being able to do it despite the pandemic, while at the same time, as I said earlier, purse strings are a bit tight. So I think demand will come in. What I'm excited about is rather more than the stimulus is the reform, right? We are looking at how education is being changed, and all of these things I think are going to cement the new digital 4.0 that we have been talking about, right? You read papers about this everywhere. You read about Industry 4.0. All of this is going to happen on the back of a very large macro reform, right? Redefining education. While all these things sound little, to some people it may sound a bit, intangible, but these are the things that will build tangible growth.
But the government is redefining education.
Yes, exactly.
The education bill was spoken of yesterday. There are big changes coming.
Yeah. Right, and I think those big changes, along with the stimulus, is what's going to have a impact on the ground, right? Whether you're talking about skills, whether you're talking about labor shortage, whether you're talking about doing AI and ML, and even your service teams being able to actually do things in a very different way, right? So all the urban companies of the world, the guys who are having digital first services. To give you a very simple example, I know of at least 5 retailers who overnight during the lockdown, I'm not talking about Jio, I'm talking about smaller retailers, who actually overnight built their e-commerce platform, right? Because they couldn't piggyback on Amazon. And when you see such kind of changes and such shifts happening, what you're talking about is real growth. You're not talking about someone piggybacking on Amazon venture money. You're talking about someone investing his own hard-earned reserves to actually build for the next million or billion people of India. And I think that's when vernacular languages, that's when TikTok going out the window, Indian apps coming in. I think all these things are exciting, but with reform, with newer definitions of doing business, with ease in governance in terms of credit, all of this is going to be very, very important for an entrepreneur or a startup like me to say that, hey, you know what? Back then, when I would have to go for a Mudra loan or talk to someone at SBI, here it is online where I'm building something and I'm able to, get funded in a way which is far more realistic, and I'm probably not paying double-digit interest rates, right? So I think it's a function of all of that together, and not
Remind me of a movie song, The Whole New World.
Yes.
Literally a whole new world, right?
Yes, and I think that's the gift, right? That's the gift, another gift that COVID-19 has given us. Like guys who are saying that, hey, you know what? We should go digital. Dekhte hai, karte hai. I don't know if people are there. Dude, now they're there, right? Yes. You got to be there.
Sure. So, Nish, bringing you in the conversation, what is the change in the conversation? When you and your team were earlier talking to investors, they would say certain things to you. They would ask you a certain set of questions. What is the set of questions they're asking you now?
In relation to India, I mean, India's economy, or?
That's right. In relation to investments, whether inside India or outside India.
Look, okay. So if we speak to people who are outside of India, the understanding is very clear. India is looked upon as a great opportunity, and there is money waiting. And I think Vatsal will probably concur in that. There is a lot of dry powder sitting around in the halls of London and Frankfurt and wherever. So there's a lot of money sitting around, languishing at 0.1, 0.2% interest rate, which is really looking for a good home. So that money could very effectively be deployed into India, but I think the mechanisms to attract foreign direct investment into India are still a little bit opaque, I should say. And I think that needs to be addressed. So, I mean, and if you look at, there's a lot of anxiety within India, but if you consider the fact that we've got the stimulus, we've had the tax cuts at the latter part of last year, interest rates are, lower perhaps than they've ever been, the headline interest rates. I think if you take all those three things and perhaps get the banking, as Vatsal suggested, and Dhaval said that we need to get some liquidity back into the market via banking system, or even via FDI, VC money or private equity. And it doesn't have to be the FANGs. It could be $1 million at a time, or whatever it might be. That sort of money will find its way into India. So I think if you look at it from the perspective of an outsider looking in, the opportunity is there. But I think because India perhaps needs to open up a little bit in its look, the genie's out of the bottle. The digitization has happened. This is something that's been maybe fast-tracked by 10 years because of COVID. The opportunity is there for India. India has the highest number of people who are employable anywhere in the world. India is also great at tech. India can also be great at manufacturing. As Amrit said, manufacturing could become one of those things that could really be one of the shining beacons of India. If you consider that less than 1% of any FDI coming into India goes into manufacturing, that's very low.
It's already started. You have Foxconn, you have Samsung, you have good companies that are investing in India and coming into India. Anurag, go ahead.
I was just saying, when a manufacturing facility comes up, there is a chaiwala that comes up, there is a canteen that comes up, there is a transportation vendor that benefits. So it develops a whole cluster. It develops a community. It develops a, so to say, an inhabitation.
A community around it.
It gives rise to other micro entrepreneurs apart from that big manufacturing facility. Amrit, if you had to predict India's economy 6 to 12 months from now, what would be your comments?
I think, Anurag, two things. I'm going to look at the short term and the long term. I think the short term, what's going to happen is that the good news is that a lot of people have moved from metros to their hometowns. What that will happen is that a lot of good talent has moved into the smaller towns, and they will find and create opportunities. So there will be a hyper local growth. There will be technology platforms that will be created where there will be a supply side of jobs and a demand side of jobs, and they will get matched, and more local jobs will be created. That will reduce the stress on the metro cities, will also help in really percolating growth and economic growth to the smaller towns. And I think for some time there will be a premium for hyperlocal products till the time that the geopolitical issues of the world are kind of sorted, and we again go back to where the world will be flat and we'll be wanting to exchange goods. But for that time, this whole hyperlocal growth is something that's really going to enhance the economic growth in the smaller parts of India, which we haven't been able to do before. And that will be the short term. And I think in the long term, what will happen is the long term is going to be all these, as you said, Anurag, you were so right that if a manufacturing unit comes up, there are so many smaller units that will come around that. And what will happen is probably an adjoining city to Delhi, say, let's just say a Meerut, or say, if we go a little deeper down, will get totally transformed into a technology city. And that is when infrastructure will develop. We will have highways which will take us faster to those cities because there will be need for movement of goods, people, and so all those things are just, I think the ground is just getting laid, and we just have to be patient. India has its unique problems, but I think we are poised for that growth. And as we said that yes, largest working population. Every other country in the world is going to be suffering with an aging population. We still have that advantage for a few years. And all the steps are right in that direction. The NEP policy, which got announced yesterday, and making such big education reforms, will really lay the ground rule for having good talent, which will be able to execute all these changes that are happening.
Okay. At this point, let's start wrapping up the panel. I want closing comments from all of you. I'll start with Jaya. Jaya, technology immersion, technology in every business will go up. So do you see technology investments in India in the next 6 months going up? Also, will technology move from a CapEx model to an OpEx model, a SaaS model in everything that we do in technology? Your comments, Jaya.
I think investments in technology are going up. So it is, it is not even a short term; it's a today thing, and there's more requests for going from on-prem to the SaaS model, and those two are absolutely true. I think adding to what the panelists said earlier, I mean, while a lot of the investments coming to India is great news, I think India must focus on building their next unicorns from India. I think we needed.
These days, you don't say unicorns; you say proficons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Profitable unicorns.
We need to build, I think the biggest thing on the stimulus package that I really liked, which was qualitative at this point, which needs to be converted to quantitative, was all about building locally. And that is something we have huge demand, which we are servicing we are using global providers to serve them. I think we need to be self-sufficient, Atmanirbhar, as far as our demands go. And that comes also in the field of technology, in a sense that don't look at global products for every single problem. Look at building it local, and then whether it's technology or whatever it is, and that's going to be a fundamental change in the way we operate in the next few years.
Okay, Dhaval Doshi, your comments on the Indian economy. Will it be good, bad, worse in the next 3 months? In the next 12 months, we know we will start coming back, and hopefully in 24 months, we will be better than ever.
Some people have also gone on to say, Anurag, that it'll be back by Diwali.
It may be temporarily back by the way, Diwali, because the spending happens in a lot of product categories. Weddings will be back. Weddings are a big contributor to the economy, even if they're scaled down wedding. So possibly it will be back, in my view, temporarily. Dhaval, your view?
I think 3 months is definitely it's positive. There's no question that things are positive. Diwali is going to bring in that positivity like it always does every year. You know, I am spiritual in that sense to say that you see that vibe and you feel it and you really do the things that you need to do. People are going to start rethinking their business models, and I have conversations with small business owners, with startups, with e-com guys. Everyone's thinking about it, right? Like that conversation of saying that, yeah, I'm running a startup, I've been doing certain things, it's not gone my way, and now COVID-19 has hit me. I think that conversation's over. The conversation that we are all having in these circles, in our mentorship groups, in our, you know, in our startup circles, is about saying that where do we go from here? And the first steps that need to be taken, whether it's adoption of the new technology, adoption of new work processes, or saying that we are going after another market, that's going to happen in Diwali, right? And I think that's that. And I mean, my 2 cents are that it's positive, it's looking good, but yes, it's going to take time. But the beginning is good. Shubh Diwali, right?
Okay, Vatsal, your comment?
Well, thank you, Anurag. Few comments. One is that, you know, we spoke about manufacturing sector. We spoke about the powerful role it will play. If we have to do that, we have to get land laws in place. We currently have conflicts between state acquisition laws and central acquisition laws. There's conflict on compensation paid to farmers. Once we get those basic rules and, you know, laws in place, and we get a bit more certainty from a regulatory point of view, you know, until then, I'm not very positive. I am positive on the digital story. For the digital story, my you know, I quip on this that blockchain is something we push on and we talk about. But the biggest corporate immune system, which is against the blockchain, is the government. Because the moment you bring blockchain across the government, it reduces a lot of layers which files have to go through. So I'm hoping for a more digitally decentralized India. And I'm hoping for more research and development centers across India, where tomorrow a kid from Goa doesn't have to leave and go to Bangalore to find a job. I think if we can crack a model where Digital India can truly penetrate tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities, and we have a vibrant India going on in different parts of the country, that is, for me, the real growth story for India. So that's where my hopes are pinned. And to that end, we continue to work together and create that.
Okay, Amrit, your final comment?
I think just to summarize, there will be an urban India, there will be an urban Bharat, and then there will be a deep down Bharat also. So all the definitions that we've had are going to change, and every corner of India will have a uniqueness to itself in the kind of work that it does. So while manufacturing might be considered in the south and the north, you might see a lot of more development work, technology development work moving towards, say, even the north now, because it's been in the right now concentrated on the south. So I really see Atmanirbharta really coming to the forefront. I think that's a great movement that's been started by the government, and the time has never been better.
Okay, Nish Bhatt, your final comments.
I'm going to put a bit more faith in the flattening of the curve. If we get more of a flattening on the curve, I think, the sooner we start seeing that, sooner we start seeing numbers coming down, it'll bring more confidence within people on the street, and people will venture out more, and people will be perhaps a little bit more excited, to try and live as normal a life as they used to do historically. That's one thing. The other thing is, the simple truth is that we are moving into a very digital, 4.0 sort of world. So legacy industries will unfortunately perish, and it's really about the industries that survive, for them to actually embrace technology to the best possible way they can. We're in real estate, even for us, prop tech is becoming more of a significant part of our business moving forward. Blockchain, again, as Vatsal mentioned, blockchain will be a major contributor to the real estate story, much less any other stories, whereby that your transactions are safe, you can blockchain protected, titles to your properties, all the rest of it. So all these changes are coming, and I think that change, it's not going to happen in 3 to 6 months. I think the spring shoots will probably start early part of 2020, and I think for the train to catch some momentum, I think we're probably going to be looking at 21, 22. That's my
all right. Just a minute left into the broadcast. Yeah.
Jaya, your final word. Jaya Vaidyanathan.
I'm cautiously optimistic, and we'll need to kind of stay healthy to get forward. So I do. That's indeed my view on the economy in the coming few months.
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously.
Anthony, Alex, your final word before we wrap up the show.
Yes. So I'm going to focus a little bit on a segment that has largely been unnoticed, underrepresented in the Indian economy, and I think they're going to have a significantly bigger voice in the next 6 to 12 months. That's the women. The decentralization of jobs and the digitization of the entire economy is going to have one major beneficiary: women. They work out of homes. They work out of, often they're not, they don't have the opportunity to really get out there. They are the segment that's really going to propel us in the next 12 to 24 months with greater digitization.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Alex Anthony. Thank you, Anurag, for being a part of this lovely debate and lovely show. And as promised, you heard a lot of ideas, a lot of optimism being shown and, being in fact thought of when it comes to the Indian economy.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.